They're involved as being mercenaries with the Gaddafi and pro-government forces. So this is obviously putting a target on them. They say that they're extremely frightened even to go out onto the streets to find help, to find food. We've heard a number of accounts of refugees being attacked. We've heard a number of accounts indeed of refugees who've been killed.
Well, we've heard from the western and eastern borders. Now let's take you to the capital. Protesters are vowing to take their fight to Tripoli, which is, of course, a Gaddafi stronghold. Al Jazeera's Anita McNaught has been allowed limited access by the Libyan government to film the report you're about to see in Tripoli.
Libyan authorities, keen to demonstrate that Tripoli is not a war zone, invited our Al Jazeera crew onto a helicopter usually reserved for tracking illegal migrants from Africa. Declaring no areas in Tripoli off limits for this flight, our government escort showed us the former People's Assembly building, burnt over a week ago in an early morning riot that has, so far, not been repeated. Across the city on the day we flew, no street battles, no riot police, and in Libya's equivalent of Tahrir Square, Green Square, just a small government-sponsored gathering provides free entertainment around the clock.
Whatever the previous inroads made into the city by the rebels, Tripoli is now a quiet place. But the damage has been done. Tripoli is also paralyzed from the loss of the people who used to work here.
The port is at a standstill. Workers, skilled and unskilled, have fled. And nearby, crowds are still gathering on the docks to board a boat to take them away. At street level in the district of Tajura, this mobile phone company office is still smouldering after it was torched during the anti-Gaddafi protests. Along the entire street, anti-Gaddafi slogans have been painted over, but the shops remain shut. But Muammar Gaddafi's son, Saiful Islam, says there's no reason for concern.
Come on, if they have 2 fires in one house or 2 buildings, maybe, of course, maybe 100 fires. Does it mean that there is everything is collapsed?
Saiful Islam also says that migrant workers are already asking to come back. But at Tripoli airport, no signs that these hundreds of Egyptians camped in squalor are changing their minds about wanting to leave. Anita McNaught, Al Jazeera, Tripoli.
Let's counter what you've just heard. Ahmed Shabani is a businessman who recently fled Tripoli. He says that the government crackdown there is stifling opposition forces.
Who in their right mind would go out on the street to get shot? The only way you can leave the streets, and I had to do the same when I was there, is to go anywhere on the streets. We had to wear a green flag on our arm or around our neck, or tape a picture of Gaddafi on the car and honk so we're in support of Gaddafi, so we wouldn't get shot at by mercenaries and anybody that supports Gaddafi loyalists. There was a few protests in between the period of the time I left, which is the 24th of February, and now, and they would just wipe them out with gunfire, and they would bring in people that you know, girls and young boys and women to chant Gaddafi slogans.
All the unrest in northern Africa has meant that more than 500 refugees have landed on the tiny Italian island of Lampedusa over the past few days. Stephen Cole has more on that in London. Stephen.
Thanks, Adrian. 200 arrived on Lampedusa in 3 boats on Wednesday night. Most of them are thought to have come from Tunisia. Well, the Italian Coast Guard intercepted the boats with the help of spotter planes. Italian authorities are worried that that means Lampedusa landings have now resumed after a 6-day break because of bad weather, stormy seas. Last month, Italy said it planned to deploy security forces to stop illegal immigration. The Libyan leader, Muammar Gaddafi, and his inner circle could be held responsible for crimes committed by their security forces. That news comes as the International Criminal Court in The Hague announced a full investigation into alleged human rights violations in Libya. The chief prosecutor, Luis Moreno Ocampo, said no one had the right to massacre civilians. Well, so who makes up Gaddafi's inner circle? Well, a crucial figure is his son, Khamis Gaddafi, head of the 32nd Brigade, and that's an elite unit. The foreign minister, Moussa Koussa, was also amongst those mentioned by the International Criminal Court, as was another of Gaddafi's sons, Mutassim Gaddafi, described as the country's national security advisor. Outside of that group, the heads of the regime's security forces and Gaddafi's personal security could all also be investigated. Well, in a moment, we'll have the latest live from The Hague, but first, this from Alan Fisher.
The Office of the Prosecutor decided to open an investigation into alleged crimes against humanity committed in Libya.
Holding the Gaddafi regime to account, the International Criminal Court is now officially investigating all that has gone on over the past days and weeks. Hundreds have been killed in the uprising against the 40-year rule of Colonel Gaddafi, thousands injured. The chief prosecutor believes crimes against humanity have been committed.
The office will investigate who are the most responsible for the most serious incidents, for the most serious crimes committed in Libya.
This is just another step by the international community to put pressure on Colonel Gaddafi and Libya. The prosecutor believes his investigation can be complete in months, not years. He will then present his evidence to the judges, who'll decide if arrest warrants should be issued. And he sent a warning to the rebel groups. We're watching you too. The United Nations Security Council referred Libya to the ICC. The chief prosecutor believes there is enough evidence to dig deeper. He's highlighted several incidents and allegations of mass killings. The 15th of February in Benghazi, the 16th of February in Misrata, Al-Baida, Derna, Ajdabaya. On the 18th, again in Misrata, and the 20th in Tripoli and Al-Zawiya. Speaking to Al Jazeera, he highlighted what is under investigation.
Crime against humanity is a widespread attack against civilian population. So if you have security forces shooting civilians in a square who are doing a demonstration, this is a crime against, this could be a crime against humanity.
The prosecutor believes the rapid call to investigate marks a dramatic change, that the world will act quickly when people are being killed, and those behind it will face justice.
Mr. Campos said that not only would members of Mr. Gaddafi's family be investigated, but so would some protesters if there was evidence to go ahead. Let's go back to The Hague and ask Alan Fisher what exactly constitutes a crime against humanity. Did Mr. Campos say?
Well, I think he outlined in the report there, Stephen, that if you are confronting protesters in a square and you're shooting at them, you're using anti-tank missiles, as has been alleged, then that would constitute a crime against humanity. He says he has no evidence at this stage to support some of the claims that we've heard that planes have been used against protesters, but clearly this investigation is at a very early stage. As we said, it's been referred to the ICC from the United Nations Security Council. The level of proof that is required to start an investigation is pretty low. There just has to be a suspicion that these crimes have been committed. And certainly we heard from Mr. Ocampo that he's been watching Al Jazeera English, he's been hearing some of the accounts of eyewitnesses, and on that basis alone, he believes there are grounds to start an investigation. And as he said, the investigation will take months rather than years. But the important thing at this stage is it's now officially underway.
Officially underway, but although he might have been